It's okay. Well,
okay, you may be seated. We are going to do Parshat Naso, which David Lemke knows pretty well because this is Bar Mitzvah Parsha, page 791. If you want to follow along in the Red Chumashim, 791. We are in the middle of the census of the Levitical clans. About you got the Avatar Kosoins, Makarov, Yaakov, we looked at him, to myself, the Hanukkah Strakamius and the Marmain, Kogan, Kohen Krav, Yamod. Ruim and Shmuel HaKohen, Baruch Shem Tantor Sabik Tu Shato, Rabbi Kiva Nalechem, Chaim Kochem Hayom.
Baruch Adonai Hamporah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamporah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher barecha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe Lemor Naso et Rosh Bnei Gershon Gamhen Levei Avotam Lemishpechotam Biben 30 Shana V'mama Ahad Ben 50 Shana Tifkodotam Kohaba Mitzvot Tzava Ma'avod Avodah Be'ohel Moed Zod Avodat Mishpechot HaGershuni Ma'avod U'Masar.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher natan lanu Torah Emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amod Shir Liba Batofer Halevi B'Tavor Tema.
Exactly.
Here.
Nothing to, what do I don't know.
That's perfect.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher barecha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. V'naseu et Yeriot HaMishkan ve'et Ohel Moed Michseihu u'michsei hatachash asher arav milmara ve'et masach petach Ohel Moed ve'et kam'ei hechatzer ve'et masach petach shar hechatzer asher ahavishkan v'ahavizbeach saviv ve'et mei tirehem ve'et kol klei avodatam ve'et kol asher ye'aseh lahem ve'avadu al pi Aharon uvanav tihiyeh kol avodat b'nei hagershuni l'chol masa'am u'l'chol avodatam ufkaditem alehem b'mishmeret et kol masa'am zod avodat mishpachot b'nei hagershuni be'ohel moed u'mishmartam b'yad Itamar ben Aharon hakohen.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Yaakov Shmuel Yosef the Rivka.
Yafa ben Shmuel Yosef v'yenta Rivka David ben Yerachmiel Shlishi.
Baruch Adonai Hamporah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten.
Amen.
משפחותם, בית אבותם תפקודותם, מבין 30 שנה ומעלה, ועד בין 50 שנה תפקדם, כל הבא הצבא, לעבוד את עבודת אוהל מועד, וזאת משמרת מסעם לכל עבודתם באוהל מועד, פרשי המשכן ובריחה ועמודיו ועדניו ועמודי החצר סביב ועדניהם ותדותם ומיתריהם לכל כליהם ולכל עבודתם ובשמות תפקדו את כלי משמרת מסעם זאת עבודת משפחות בני מררי לכל עבודתם באוהל מועד ביד איתמר בן אהרון הכהן ויפקוד משה ואהרון ונשיאי העדה את בני הקהתי למשפחותם ולבית אבותם מבין 30 שנה ומעלה ועד בין 50 שנה כל הבא הצבא לעבודה באוהל מועד יהיו פקודיהם למשפחותם 2,750 פקודי משפחות הקהתי כל העובד באוהל מועד אשר פקד משה ואהרון על פי אדוני ביד משה.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Natan B'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Sasan and Brenda, Yamod, Hamabia, Tamod, HaKodelet. Please rise, the Torah is lifted and tied.
Yeah, you bring it back. There you go.
Bezot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe. 72.
טוב להודות אדוני, וזמר לשמך היום, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, אמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בחינות, כי שימחת רנה בפועלך, ומעשה ידיך רמז, מגדו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך, לברוח רשעים כמו עשב, ויציצו כל הארץ, וישם דם עדי עד, ואתה מרום לעולם אדוני, כי אוהביך אדוני, כי אוהביך יאבדו, יתפרדו כל עבד, ותרם קירם פני, ולותי בשמן רענן, ותבדני בשורה, בקמים עלי קרים תשמענה עוזי, צדיק כתמה יפרח, קרב ארון יזכה, שתולים בבית אדוני, וחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד נבון בסלע, תשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי אשר אדוני, צורי ולא עבלתה.
Page 232. Yalu Shem Adonai, Ki Nitzgav Shemo Levado, Alzeres Shamayim, Bayaran Karen Leamo, Chasidav Nesron Krovo, Hallelujah.
Tu sheharim rashechem Usehu b'chei olam yavo
Chedechol Beit Yisrael, Aglezman Karihi, Vimrehu, Amen. Yeheshem Marach, Ve'alav Lamed Amayak, Yiparach V'Ishtabak, working our sect. Yizdavi Tzulav Tzulav Shmi Kedusha HaBrichu, Le'lo Chesav Shiratah, Zishkatav Nechamatak, Damri Amaha, Vimrehu, Amen. The Ami does it privately 234 to 239. Turn back. Okay. Turn back to page 234b. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor B'Hanarak El Yehon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakov V'Zocher Chas Umevi go Alef name Magen Abraham Ufokei Tzarach Ata Gibor Le'Lamanai Mechayim Eitim Ata Rav Lehoshia Marid Hatak Mechakeh Chayim Mechesed Mechayim Eitim Rachamim Rabbikim Somech Noflim Rofei Cholim U'Matira Surihim Mekayim Natoy Shnei Afak Michamocha Bagvarot Umi Damelach Melchim Mechayim Masmich Yeshua V'Ne'amanat Alachayot Meitim Baruch Ata Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim Kadosh, 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 and I saw Maratz Kavoto, Yamatam Baruch, and Mayor Baruch of Ranai, Mikam Mahop, Direct Shachak Hatsu, Vaymor. Yimloch, and Elam, Haxu, the Baruch, Hallelujah, the Tabatorna, God, the Hecha, with a net technical Shak Naktish, Vishivacha, Elohim. Ipinole Mishilam Ba'eg, Kemakam Kadosh Atak, Baruch Hasranahak, Ha'el HaKadosh. Ata Chavashimcha Echad, Umi Kemcha Yisrael Goechad Ba'aretz, Tiferet Kitihulak, Ater Yeshuahak, Yom Nuchak Nishabakanatak, Abraham Yagea Yitzchak Yiranehim, Yaakov Anav Yanuchuvo, Menuchat and Vanava, Menuchat and Metbamunak, Menucha Shalom Moshe Veshkeva Vetak, Menucha Shtemash Teret Sebak. Yakuvanecha ve'idu ki himitchavi menuchatakam yamenuchatam Yeshua Shemecha Eloheinu levoteinu ritzei v'menuchatenu kadeshenu v'mitzvotecha v'temukenu v'tzoratecha samenu v'tebecha v'simchenu v'shuatecha delibenu v'dechavi emeg v'achenu Eloheinu ba'aratzon shebakochecha v'nuchavai somekadeshei Shemecha Baruch Atanak, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Say Elohim Yom Chayis Yotzaknam. Vashiva David Ritacha. Utziatam Yabak Liratzon. Tiratzon to Midai Solamecha. Betachazana Edehi. Vishuchas Yom Barachamim. Baruch Atanak. Hamachashir Knatzal Etzia. Modim Anach. Hatol Kilo. Hamraken Rock is from the comment of Makino to me number egg. The whole Hamitu Kasala, the Alush Kabemet, Hael, you attain as a tainer Salak. Baruch Ata Adonai, Hato Shikana Kanala and the Hotel. Shalom Baba Israel, Kakwai Shate Belt, Simni Allah, Kiatau Malachadona, Kawashalok, Beto, Beina. The Barech at some heights of the Shabi Shamacha, Baruch Atana, Hambrach Israel, Bashalom, 247. Ikidave Kidashmi, Rabak, Be Ahmad, Bakun, Ubkhadi Kobik Israel, Baglasman Karibim, Amen. Yeheshim of Rach, the alarm, Lame, Amen. Yebarach, Vishlakin, the sick, Vitatar, Vitatar, Loshmi, Kudusha, Rehub, the Elam, Kutavashiratzak. Amen. Take a bus to home with the home police shop. With the home to Shmavim, Amen. Yehei Shalom Shamai, Bachayim, Alina Bakwaisra Albim, Amen. Oh, say Shalom Ramav, we say Shalom, Alina Bakwaisra Albim, Amen. 248, please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol la'tei kirula le'yoseh b'reishit Shelo asan kroye harason velo hosama yukushachota Shelo sam kapeyu kahen le'or aleinu le'or v'hanach yukori u'mishacharim u'moti HaKadosh Baruch Hakatzua Torah Takanayim Loch Le'Eloham Ba'ek V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai Le'melech al kol ha'aretz V'yom ha'hu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad More Kaddish 249. Yit Gadal, Shemei Rabbah, V'Hamad, Ivrat, Kivutei, V'Amif, Machutei, V'Chayechon, V'Yomechon, V'Chayei, D'Chol Beit Yisrael, V'Gala, U'Vizman, Kari, V'Imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, V'Barach, Le'Olav, Lamei, Amen. Yiparach, V'Yishtabach, Yipar, V'Chamam, V'Nasek, V'Yitzadar, V'Yitzaleh, V'Yitzalak, Shemei D'Kudusha, V'Yichub, Ve'ela, Mikol, V'Chata, V'Shirata, Tush V'Chata, V'Nechamata, Damiran, V'Yama, V'Imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba, Min Shemak, V'Chaim, Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'Imramak, Uya Aseh Shalom. Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Imru Amen.
Yeshikoach to Rabbi Schreber. Just a few little announcements before we continue with our evening. So we've started with Mincha. We are now about to have a very traditional Shavuot feast that our ancestors ate for the last 3,000 years, consisting of eggplant parm and lasagna and garlic knots. So please enjoy l'chaim to that. And I want to offer some gratitude to Bert and Jackie Espadkor, who graciously sponsored tonight's festivities, as they have for so many years, in memory of Eunice Neman. And also want to thank the individuals who are with us each and every day. We want to give a big shout out to Basil and to Bill and to James for everything that they do. Also, a welcome back and refuah shalema, wishing a full, continued recovery to Lester Sierra, and truly deserves.
He's getting our food for us, but don't let him know.
But he is back here with us after a recovery that will, God willing, continue for many, many years to come in better and better health. So pick yourself up when you're ready at your earliest convenience and help yourselves.
Okay.
And then we'll have some discussion and a panel with our young adults. The whole evening will.
Do you know what time for the few people on Zoom? What time we might be starting our first discussion? 8 o'clock.
Around,
Okay.
I would say
Around 8 o'clock, our first discussion will start.
On or a little bit before.
Shonei Urina, Az Yomru HaGoyim, Yigdil Adonai La'asosim Melech, Yigdil Adonai La'asosim Manu, Ahai Yosef, Shirova Adonai, Veshivitei, Ka'afifi Ba'anek, Ahazor, Vetina, Te'eri Arisol, Adok Yelechu Ba'apo, Yosef Yeshet Hazak, Oh, Yaakov Merina, Yosef Alunota, Abirai Yavare, Yedishem Anurachnes Aviadolam, Yedishem Anurachnes Aviadolam, Yeshua Abirai, Yavarech, Elohim Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael, Baruch Ha'yisrael, Shalom, Utuvo, Chayim, Elohim Yisrael, Tuvo, Chayim, Baruch Ha'yisrael, Baruch Atah Eloheinu melech haolam, Hasam et haolam kulo b'tuvo, v'chein v'chesed u'rachamim, u'notein v'chesed kol basar, ki yere'o la'asot, u'tuvo ha'gadol, Tami lo chasar lanu, ve'ayosar lanu, Hasam le'olam ba'ed ba'avor shemo ha'gadol, Yirazam u'parnetz ba'akol, u'metz ba'akol, u'mechim ma'azon, ve'chol b'yotam asher ba'aretz, Baruch atah Adonai, No, Denetha Adonai Eloheinu Rashi L'Chata Lavoteinu Eretz Kamzat Baruch Haba B'Ritzvah Tova Hayim U'Mazon Ve'al HaKol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu Modim Ba U'Mbarachim Ota Yiparach Shimcha B'Kri Kol Chai Tamid Le'olam Va'ed Ta'Katsu Ve'Yachata V'Savata U'Verachta Et Adonai Elohecha Ala Aretz HaTova Shenatana, Baruch Atah Adonai, Al Haaretz ve'al Hamazon, Ritzei v'ha'al Ritzeinu Adonai Eloheinu Mitzvotecha, U'mitzvad Yom HaShvi HaShabbat HaGadol ve'Hakadosh Hazeh, V'tov L'Ruachol, Ve'yahavach Mitzvat Ritzonecha, U'b'nei Yerushalayim, HaKodesh B'meirav Yameinu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mohnei v'rachamav Yerushalayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ha'eloheinu malkeinu, Azireinu Bor'einu, Go'aleinu, Yotzreinu, Kidoshenu, V'Doshenu. Ro'enu Yisrael melech hatov v'mitiv lakol, Shebachol yom v'yom, U'heitiv, U'meitiv, U'yetiv lanu, U'gmalanu, U'gomleinu, U'gomleinu. We ask God to bless all of us who are present here. Hamatzvah Yavarech Tzolman Nesubin Arachaman Hu Yan Kileinu Yom Sheselo Shabbat U'Menucha L'Chayei Ha'olamim. We ask God to bless this beautiful land and Medinat Yisrael. Arachaman Yivarech Ha'aretz Hazot Ve'Yisrael. Arachaman Yivarech Medinat Yisrael. Yeshik Tzrikat Yuratenu. Arachaman Yizakenu Liyamot HaMashiach, Chafei HaOlam Ha'aba, Yidol Yeshu Otnacho, Yosef Chesed B'Chi'o, Medavid Uzaro Olam, Oseh Shalom B'Roma, Hallelujah, Kol Yisrael Yehimen. Yes. Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. So, we want to ask for everybody's attention so that we can have a conversation about the question of what it means Okay. Now we're just, thanks everybody. Just want to make sure that everybody can hear. So we were talking about really a topic that we believe is very important for us as Americans, as Jews. And that topic is, what is it like? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities of living as a Jewish person in a space that is not entirely Jewish? The United States of America is not a Jewish country. We could argue what influences there are that might be religious, but it's not a Jewish country. And do we feel like we are oppressed? Do we feel like we are invited? Do we feel like we are on the margin? Do we feel like we are in the center? These are the kinds of questions that we want to be raising, and we want each of us to think about what kind of a place is this for us as Jews? Is it hostile? Is it welcoming? Is it somewhere in between? Is this a place where Jews are going to be comfortable for hundreds and hundreds more years? If you look at Jewish history, Spain was a place we were comfortable for a lot of years, and then we left and we didn't leave in a good way. Germany is a place where we were comfortable for hundreds and hundreds of years. Iran is a place we were comfortable for thousands of years. So what does it mean for us to be in a place where we are comfortable and to ask the question, what about the future? So Rabbi Schweber and I have prepared a few passages that come from ancient traditions. So this comes from the time of the rabbis. And there's an expression, Ein Hadash Tachat HaShemesh, in Kohelet and Ecclesiastes, nothing new under the sun. So our ancestors living in connection with the Romans, they also asked the questions, are we comfortable? Are we fully invited? Are we in danger? How do we relate to a culture that is not our culture? And we're going to take a look first at two different passages, and we'll invite questions and reactions from everybody here. The first is about Rabbi Kiva, who lived during Roman times, and the second is about Rabban Gamliel, and they're very different. You're going to see two very different reactions to and experiences of the dominant Roman culture, and then we'll take a look at what that might mean for us today. So Rabbi Schweber is going to begin with the first passage about Rabbi Kiva.
Thank you so much. I always like to put some historical context, but I don't want to put a lot here. But we should just know that we always say, and we're getting closer to the summer, the next holiday after Shavuot, it's Tisha B'Av. We say the destruction of the Second Temple started the long exile. However, if you look closer, many Jews, including the rabbis who really formed Judaism as we know it, remained in the land of Israel for centuries under the Romans. And so, yes, they were originally, the temple was destroyed, but then they moved to Yavne. They were able to thrive under the Romans. Then there's a Bar Kokhba revolt, where Rabbi Kiva is kind of finding himself. But then things get better again, and the Mishnah is able to be formulated. And so this whole debate about sort of, is it good to be with Rome? Is it bad? It's something that we can certainly speak of today, because he mentions, is it good for the Jews here? We're not in Jewish space. Some people argue Great Neck is in Jewish space. But I want you in your mind as well, as we do these questions. Most of us, I think, have traveled in the United States outside of the New York area. And your experiences as a Jew there, wherever it might have been, whether it's in the South, the West, the Midwest, wherever it is. So we need to have that in mind, because obviously this is a great, large land, and experiences are different in New York. You can answer the questions for New York, and obviously outside as well. So I'm going to read the text, and I want you to sort of first put your head in the mind of what is Rabbi Kiva thinking, and then asking what can we apply of his thinking to us today, because that's what's beautiful about the rabbis, is they gave us these beautiful parables that are timeless, because the issues are the same, and they had the wisdom to know that the issues were going to be the same. Once the wicked government of Rome decreed that the Jewish people were forbidden to study Torah. Papas ben Judah saw Rabbi Kiva convening gatherings in public and studying Torah with them. Remember, he was the one who's going to be tortured for defying the Roman decrees and studying Torah. Said he to him, Akiva, are you not afraid of the government? Rabbi Kiva answered him, I will relate a parable. To what can this be compared? It is like a fox walking along a riverbank when he sees fish gathering and fleeing from place to place. The fox said to them, from what are you fleeing? They said to him, the fish, we are fleeing from the nets that people cast upon us. The fox said, do you wish to come up on dry land and we reside together, just as my ancestors resided with your ancestors? They used that evolution, I guess. Though the fox was in the water. The fish said to him, you are the one of whom they say, he is the cleverest of animals. You are not clever, you are a fool. If we are afraid in the water, our natural habitat which gives us life, then a habitat that causes our death, all the more so. He's trying to entice them onto dry land, and the fish say, we can't go on dry land. We're going to go on dry land, and we are sure to die versus avoiding the nets we possibly can. The moral is, so too we Jews, now that we sit and engage in Torah study, for it is written, for that is your life and the length of your days, from Deuteronomy, we fear the empire to this extent. If we proceed to sit idle from its study, as its abandonment is the habitat that causes our death, all the more so we fear the empire. If we are to give up the Torah, if we are to convert, shall we say, then we have no more life. And we have more to fear the empire, versus he feels safer staking with his Judaism and defying the Roman empire. So, question is, how does Rabbi Kiva view contemporary Roman society? And is it similar or different than living in the United States of America in 2022? Yes, please ask.
I would like to point out one little fact that the Greeks, while the Jews were in Israel, were very anti-Semitic towards the Jews.
Okay.
So that sort of was imported into Rome.
So hold on to that a little bit, actually, because we're going to actually mention a Greek god in the next passage. But yeah, so there's that baggage of there's history of anti-Semitism. The Greeks, Hellenistic culture had anti-Semitism involved with it. And the Romans are the inheritors of that culture. So does that mean that they are anti-Semitic? We could say the same question about sort of American culture. I'm going to throw a term because it was the majority culture at the time, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, that they were anti-Semites. Think about the prep schools and colleges. There was a lot of anti-Semitism in the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. Is today, the America of today, that same anti-Semitic milieu or not? So I'm hearing yes. Okay, can you expand a little bit more?
As soon as I'm out of Long Island, whether it's a next door or another city, I feel so different.
Okay.
I feel the difference in culture. I feel like a fish out of water.
You feel like a fish out of water going to the airports, and leaving the New York City. Once you, take off at LaGuardia, you're done. Other thoughts?
We had some comments all over.
Yes, Brent.
Well, so let's circle back to a couple of things.
Okay.
So I think when you look at what happened in Roman times, there was state-supported anti-Semitism.
Okay.
Right? So I think what we're seeing in this country is maybe we don't see state-supported anti-Semitism necessarily to that extent, but we certainly see a lot of factions and layers in our society that are clearly anti-Semitic, and they're emboldened, right? And what does the government do about it?
Okay.
So I think that it's something to be concerned about. Having grown up way outside of New York, as you know, maybe I have a little bit of a different perspective. But that's what I'm concerned about. We got a lot of these factions. They wield power. They threaten us, not just in the community, but the college campuses and in other places. And we have to be wary of them.
So unlike a Kiva, we don't thankfully have the state-sanctioned anti-Semitism, but there's other groups that are getting to us.
I don't know about those things, but definitely
Well, he's going to repeat. I mean, is there a mic that we can?
A lot of the Jews that regarding what application they do have, it's against their own church. And I think the most part of it are run today is
Okay, so we're feeling the disunity. By the way, that's not new either, okay? In Roman times, in 70 CE, when the temple was destroyed, it was destroyed because of Sinat Hinam, but also a base association, but also of political conflict and literally warfare between the groups of Jews. So not only do you have to worry about being a fish out of water, you got to worry about the big fish, or the ugly fish trying to get us.
I remember growing up as a Jew in Brooklyn, and we all could wear our yarmulkes and go every place and feel very comfortable. Whoa, would you feel comfortable today wearing your yarmulke going into the city? And also,
Depends what city.
the times have changed. I went to City College, we were Jewish, we felt comfortable. Today, from what I hear from the kids who are going to college, they're not so comfortable anymore. So we have to look at what's happening. Because my wife was a survivor, and after the war, we know how the people felt. And let's hope it's not happening here.
Right. Okay, we want to ask people to try to project, and also let's really do our best to listen, and then we'll repeat.
So there's those non-governmental forces that are saying we need to go back to our Christian values, and that as minorities, but there's not just for Jews, we feel it. Right. Yes, Rebecca.
I think that implicit in the first story is that we're not supposed to feel like anything other than a fish out of water. Akiva would rather be the fish out of water than the fish in. It's because he's called out that he feels the most Jewish. My contrast, right? Well, I'm just saying, part of being a Jew, evidently, is precisely the feeling of being a fish out of water.
Well, but Akiva is saying in the metaphor of these things is to stay in the water.
Right.
He would rather stay in the water, keeping a Jewish identity, even though the nets. Okay, so I'm thinking the nets is anti-Semitism that is outside, that's threatening it, and there's a choice. He meant Rabbi Secker mentioned. I think about sort of the expulsion from Spain and the Inquisition, whereas that you either convert or you leave. And there were those who converted, and it just caused a lot of strife amongst the Jewish community because I'm going to convert, or at least I'm going to be a crypto Jew. I'll save my life. And the question was, what life are you saving?
That's the thing. He's not afraid of the government. He's more afraid of not being Jew.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yes, no, his fear is if we give up the Torah, we have more to fear from the government. We're in worse shape. I will rather take the anti-Semitism from the government than give up my heritage, is what he's saying, right? And like it's somewhere, and obviously if we think about sort of later modern history in terms of Theodor Herzl and why we got to Zionism, it's because Herzl said, I'm going to give up the Torah. He was fine giving up the Torah. Okay, and then we learned quickly that you can't give up your Jewishness, and so he was left with nothing, and that's how the Zionism movement was born. Was we might as well embrace our Jewishness and make it thrive. Maurice.
I want to address a little bit about the priests, because sometimes times make the country change. I don't know. But I will tell you, chaps, we were back that 150,000 Jews, and most of us went to Israel. The aeroplanes, sometimes the Arabs or the Iraqis will not let the aeroplane leave Iraq to go directly to Israel. But Israel was very smart. Sometimes they sneak us directly. I came directly to Israel. However, my father had to go to Greece, and Greece was very nice to the Jews. Then he went to Israel. So what I'm saying is we have to consider the total picture that happened in history. And we cannot forget the good people. And then if they change, I don't know, the gentleman here said maybe they did. But we have to remember the good things also.
Yes, we definitely
History repeats itself.
History repeats itself. We heard about, the Holocaust survivor. Then we know about that there were righteous amongst the Gentiles. So there's a couple more comments and move to the next comment. Yes.
One of the conundrums you have right now is that extremists on either side have taken on anti-Semitism. On the right, it's obvious that Jews will not replace us. The whole tying Jews into the idea of whites becoming a minority. In calling whites a minority, they are calling Jews non-white. And that's very dangerous. On the other extreme, we're talking about the colleges and universities and the left. There's a very strong component of that relates to anti-Zionism.
Yes.
So you have on the right side, you have we don't want Jews because we perceive them as non-Christian and non-white. And on the other side, it's become very seductive to link anti-Zionism
and the Jews become the oppressor and the things like that. Yeah.
Jews become the colonial.
The observation that if you go into Asia, you do not find this particular phenomenon. It seems to be, I hate to say Christian, but a Western phenomenon. Unfortunately, now the Muslims are also accepted for different reasons.
Yeah.
But this it's interesting to see still has.
Yes.
So
Right now, but Al, I think it's a good point to bring it because Al brings a full circle in my mind. It says that what I would call sort of this type of hatred. I'm not going to say the Asian sort of hatred and things like that. There's certainly the caste system in Southeast Asia and things like that. But and someone actually brought up about Africa as well. That the concept of sort of these isms doesn't exist the same way. Okay, I don't know what it's like to be a Jew in Africa. We have some South Africans here, but what even dark-skinned blacks say is that when they go to Africa, or even when they go to Europe, what they feel outside and inside is very different, similar to the fish out of water idea, than they do in America. In America, that distinction of race is very, very clear. And he said Harrison was a Christian. I think it's also a Hellenistic idea, sort of these categories, who's in, who's out. And we have to sort of deal with that as a Western religion as well, how we work with that. And I think that's a good transition to the next thing.
No, thanks, Rabbi Schroeder. So the first text, our reaction suggests that we are understanding Rabbi Kiva to be reflecting a real discomfort in Roman society. This is an oppressive society, and he's going to cling to the Torah, even if it means that he can't be on land. He's going to be wherever he needs to be to get the strength of his tradition. So now, if you look at text 2, you'll see arguably a different approach to what it means to live in these surroundings. So a wise Gentile, Proclus ben Plaspus,
just to go through life with that name must have been a little bit traumatic. Once asked a question of Rabban Gamliel in the city of Akko, when he, Gamliel, was bathing in the bathhouse of the Greek goddess Aphrodite. So flip to the back. Koku said to him, "It is written in your Torah, and nothing of the prescribed item shall cleave to your hand. For what reason do you bathe before an idol in the bathhouse of Aphrodite?" So basically, the rabbi is sitting, we would say, in the schwitz. He's having a bath in the public bathhouse. And this individual says to him, a Gentile, "How can you be in a space where there is a Gentile God? How can you possibly justify this?" So Rabban Gamliel, first he says to him, one may not answer questions related to Torah in the bathhouse. So first he says, let's go to a different place, okay? So, controlling the context is what we call this. And when he left the bathhouse, Rabban Gamliel gave him several answers. He said to him, "I did not come into its domain, it came into my domain." The bathhouse existed before the statue dedicated to Aphrodite was erected. So his first comment is, I'm taking a bath. I'm getting myself clean. I'm not doing anything to, and along comes this idol, this statue dedicated to Aphrodite. Furthermore, people don't say, let's make a bathhouse as an adornment for Aphrodite. Rather, they say, let us make a statue of Aphrodite as an adornment for the bathhouse. The main structure is not the statue, but the bathhouse. So now let me ask you, what is Rabban Gamliel's relationship to the surrounding culture? How does he view the bathhouse, the statue, whatever it is? What is his attitude towards it? It's utilitarian for sure. Good. Yeah.
Would say that he views Roman culture as temporary.
Interesting. Interesting. The Roman culture is temporary. Okay, that's wonderful. By the way, the bathhouse itself is Roman culture. So he's already taking part in it. He is already doing that which when in Rome. Well, he wasn't in Rome, but he was doing what the Romans do, right? So would you say that he's largely comfortable in his surroundings?
Absolutely.
He's naked.
Yeah, right.
He is completely comfortable. This is his environment, okay? So now let me ask you, how is that similar or different from the way that we view life, our lives in America? Has anybody been to Madison Square Garden? Do you think that that's a place you're allowed to go? Anybody here been to an American university? Is that a place where you think you are allowed to go? Okay, so thoughts about this and about whether his approach and attitude, and feel free to push back and disagree, his approach as you understand it, is that similar or different to the way we approach our lives as Jews here in America, our sense of what it means to be here? Any thoughts about this one, please?
So, I think it's like, as Jews, one day in the past, we feel like we're talking, so technically it's that house.
Oh, wow, interesting, okay. Repeat what he said, please. No, so a bathhouse could be a dangerous place, right? Good. Wonderful, wonderful. So you're saying, even Rabban Gamliel, he might have felt comfortable, but are we really comfortable in a public space? Are we really comfortable? You didn't say this, but I'm going to add to it to see what people think. Are we really comfortable at a university? Sure, we can go. Are we comfortable there? Like, is America our place as much as it is anybody else's place? Arguably, Rabban Gamliel feels at home with all of this and knows where to place the limits. Are we at home here? Of course we are. No.
Okay, those are two different opinions. Please.
I have 17 years old. And they've been far by business. At this point, they were asking for new stars to wear old pictures.
Right.
And they're going around with new colors. And at first I said, it's a good idea, because maybe we'll get in. I mean, whatever. But then I look at it a different way, is they're gonna know right away if they're being accepted, and then they'll choose not to vote.
Nice.
And now it's a choice, it's a way you want to live.
Sure.
We decide to live in a very enticement manner.
Right.
Very deep, and all different kinds.
Yeah.
And I feel very comfortable. I grew up in the neighborhood. Very
Right. Right.
And then there's part of it, there's only two
They may be wondering what they're doing. Okay, but right. But you're saying that you have made decisions to be in places where there are many Jews, even where that's the majority. And when your grandchildren, just in case everybody here, are looking at colleges, you are wondering, should they expose their Jewish stars? And you said, you know what, why not? That way they'll know whether they're comfortable there and they'll be able to put out that vibe, right? But now getting back, this sense.
From the person who said no?
Actually, the reason I said no is a little more general.
Yeah.
I think in general, nobody's comfortable anywhere right now.
Okay. Interesting.
That's all it's
No,
I
that
just had to add that.
no, it's a general statement about society. Okay, beautiful. Okay. So yeah.
I was growing up, we had neo-Nazis, we had anti-Semitism on the right. We all knew it. What happened today? Where's the neo-Nazism coming from? Still coming from the right, but also wasn't then, it's coming from the left. We have the Bernie Sanders, we have the Squad, we have the neo-Nazis coming from both sides. And the question is, where is the growth of the neo-Nazis? The growth coming from the right, or the growth coming from the left? And we all grew up, we were all part of the FDR with our power. But maybe what then isn't today. We have to be careful. Coming from.
So I just want to say, by the way, a brief advertisement, if I might, and then we'll get to this comment. So on June 16th, I'm going to have a conversation with Jonathan Greenblatt, who's the CEO of the ADL, about a book that he wrote, It Can Happen Here. And he does take aim, he gets criticized by the right and the left, which is interesting, but so does ADL. He takes aim at right-leaning anti-Semitism and at left-leaning anti-Semitism. And I think there would be value, everybody is welcome, it is open, to hear that conversation, because they have done very strong empirical research about the nature of right-leaning and left-leaning anti-Semitism, and I think it's good to shed as much light as we can. Please, and then sure. Okay, you know what? We're going to do people who haven't spoken yet. So let's start first. Go ahead, Arthur, and then Seth, and then we'll come back.
I think Jewish people over the centuries are very adaptive.
Aha.
Going back to
Adaptive, yeah.
I went to college where the Catholic number of Jews. My whole life because of that. The college that I went to had a rabbi, my grandchildren went to Colorado. All the kids that went to various colleges there,
Yeah.
coming close to a place like and look at that young kids later on in college experience. I said, for kids.
It's fine.
They are the biggest anti-Semites in the college campus. Where are all the anti-Semites?
interesting. No, thank you, Arthur. Okay, good. Seth, go ahead.
So I want to question whether Brother Gamliel was actually comfortable in society because.
Go, wait, Seth,
Seth wants to question whether Gamliel really was comfortable in the bathhouse.
Right, so I made the claim that he was comfortable, or maybe more comfortable than Rabbi Kiva, maybe,
Right,
but.
go to your point, he's in the Schwitz naked, right? There's nothing identifying, well, there's something naked. There's one thing identifying. But got a towel across his lap, so it's, he's, everyone's the same there, right? Now, Papas, by the way, it's a Jewish name, right? He's got the Jewish band, but that's a whole separate issue.
Yes.
He recognized, why should I recognize it? I wonder if Gamliel, it was
Gamliel.
Gamliel, if he's walking in the market wearing his clothing, whether he felt the same comfort as the anonymity of being in the bathhouse. And maybe the bathhouse, maybe that's one of the reasons he liked the bathhouse, was he did have in general that anonymity.
Very, very interesting, although not from Proclus, because he asked him a rabbi question, right?
Well, he was
But
recognized by
but what I think that we're seeing with him, and again, maybe he wasn't so comfortable, but what we're seeing is that he moved about in Roman society. He didn't stay home. And he also seemed to know what his limits were. He wasn't going to worship Aphrodite. He saw Aphrodite as a decoration. And in his mind, it was okay to be there. I would submit for your consideration that we do that all the time. I mean, we determine, those of us who went to public schools, can I see a show of hands if you're not? If you grew up singing songs that were not Jewish, whether you went to a Muslim school or a Christian or a school that had Christianity, right? So were you saying songs that were not just right? So I think that all of us have done some navigation, is what I'm saying, in terms of being part of a larger culture and figuring out what our limits are. Yes, Rebecca, you had that thought. Okay, yes, and we'll come back.
Just noting in the second text, the context is already very narrow. The person who's asking, a non-Jew, is the wise one who actually knows the Jewish law.
Yes.
That's already a friendly, safe space.
Interesting.
Irrespective if it's in the market or the bathhouse, already it's a very different context than, the accusatory, hateful person asking the question or the ignorant person asking the question. So it's not a great.
Okay.
I don't think it's the best juxtaposition.
Interesting. The thought that I had, by the way, was that he might be trying to trip him up, so that possibly by knowing a little something, he was going to get him. Okay. Yes, and then we're going to go to Irene.
My thought comes back to the lady with the 14-year-old with the children getting ready for college.
Yes.
The rabbi was comfortable naked, but would he have been as comfortable naked with the young?
Okay. Good question. Irene.
Couple of years, there was a speaker here who talked about research study that showed that Jews were inspired more in that moment in history less than 10 years ago than at any other time in the United States. We're at other Americans admiring about Chelsea. Like married a Jew, always a Jew. And I'm just remembering that so shocking.
Interesting.
Can you repeat that? Don't get
Yeah, sure. So what she's saying is 10 years ago, she remembers a lecturer here saying, based on a survey that was done, that Jews are among the most admired people, that people like, wow, Chelsea Clinton wanted to marry somebody who was Jewish, the president's daughter, right? And perhaps that's changed, is that, how quickly that can change. What we're going to do is we have just a few more minutes, and obviously we're here all night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be we'll be in the lounge selling CDs, so you can come talk to us. What I want to point out is just briefly the third text, and then really just raise a question for us to think about. So the third text distinguishes between Chokhmah, which is wisdom, and Torah, which is our teaching, our instruction, our guidance. So the idea is that sages said There's wisdom to be found everywhere. You want to go to university, you want to study philosophy, there's wisdom everywhere. If you are told there's wisdom among the nations, believe it. If you are told there is Torah among the nations, do not believe it. So it's interesting that this teaching is suggesting that we need to know the difference between that which is universal and can be found anywhere. And you want to go to the museum, you want to look at the Impressionist exhibit, you want to study Sufi philosophy, whatever it happens to be, beautiful. But what is the limit? What is the limit when you're getting to a space? There are people who, Jewish young people, for example, who are connecting to Buddhism, to Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist meditation. Is that at cross purposes with Judaism? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So the final question, and there's no way to easily wrap this up. Do we see this diaspora, America, as being essentially different from other places where we have lived? Do we believe that there is something essentially different such that our future here will be different than it was in some of the places that we mentioned earlier, where things were pretty good for a while and then not so much? So just by show of hands, if you think things are going to be different here. As long as America is still growing up. Raise your hands if you think not so different in America, or maybe not different enough. Raise your hand if you think it's a matter of time before the Jewish people have to leave the United States of America. It's just a matter of time. Okay. So I'm going to try to leave to end on a more optimistic note by saying, and I really appreciate, Arthur, what you said, that we have managed over the years, that the Jewish people have managed to adjust. Hopefully, we will be able to hold on to that which is essential. Hopefully, we'll be able to take in that which elevates us, and we'll be able to maintain our physical and our spiritual well-being wherever we are for many, many years to come. What we're going to do now is really prepare to welcome the Chag. So Shavuot is beginning. It is, we're going to ask everybody, we'll bring some more chairs over there, to head over to our prayer space. And we're going to have Mari, our beats, which
if you want to
Azan,
keep the sheets raised, you would like me to recycle them, please hand them to me. So bring a couple chairs and grab a CUR, and in 1 minute or two, we will start the evening.
So we'll bring chairs over, and then we're going to have a panel of our graduating seniors and college students, and that will be the next part of our conversation. Okay, I apologize, I know everybody didn't get a chance.
So I hope.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to welcome Chag HaShavuot, Zman Matan Toratenu, the festival of the giving of our Torah. Everybody, please rise. We turn to page 28 for Baruch Hu, and there are some very beautiful melodies that we just use on these special holidays, Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot, just to really get us spiritually, emotionally, musically into the proper space. Page 28. Everybody may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bivaro mari v'ravim milchokcha potech she'avim. Yom mevinayla u'matiye ben yom u'ven layla Adonai tzevot shemo
אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים, אהבת עולם בית ישראל, אהבת תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, שוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. דבתך תסיר ממנו לעמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני צבאך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בשבתך וביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך ובקשתם לראות עיניך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובמשעריך. אדוני אליכם אמת, תורה כוזו קיים, קיבו אדוני אליכם תוספת סלמו.
We're continuing on page 32. We recall leaving Mitzrayim, crossing the sea, and then of course beyond that, receiving the gift of Torah, middle of page 32.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל, הכנו שירה בשמחה רבה, בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע לפני משה, זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני God Israel.
Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace and awaken us again, our sovereign to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace.
ושמו צדקנו, ובואנו לכם שלום מעתה ועד עולם. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
Please rise and recite the second paragraph on 34. וידבר משה את מועדי אדוני אל בני ישראל.
וידבר משה את מועדי אדוני אל בני ישראל, יתגדל ויתקדש שמרבה, ועלמד דברה חירותי והמליך מלכותי, בחייך וגמך ובחיי בכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יש ברבה מברך לעולם המיה, יתברך ויסתבח ויתפאר ויתנשא ויתהדל ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי קודשה ברכו ואין למקומך ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמיר אדמה, אמרו אמן.
Take a few moments for private prayer, pages 41 to 44, where it says for Saturday night, where we distinguish between Shabbat and Yom Tov, we add that piece.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 44. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. כי אתה הוא מלך הדור לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך הדור לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Page 48, Kaddish Shalem.
יתקרא ויתקרא שמי רבה.
אמן.
יאמר דברי אחריתי ומפחותי, וכיכון ומכון, ובכן כל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב. אמרו
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ועמי עמיה יברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרא ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשה.
בריחו.
אלא מכפרתה ושירתה, תושבתה ורחמתה תמירה נעמה, ואמרו
אמן.
תתקבל צרות רחמתו תכו ישראל, קודם עמוד ישמעיה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שנה רבים שמעיה, וחיים על רווחו ישראל, ואמרו
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. עלינו ועל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
On page 50, we have a Kiddush, which also has a Havdalah, and so it's called Yaknehaz, Yain, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah, and then we end with Shechianu, thanking God to being here to another Shavuot.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafel.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol העם, ורומנו מכל לשון, וקידשנו במצוותיו. ותיתן לנו אדוני באהבה, מועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון. את יום חג השבועות הזה, זמן מתן תורתנו, מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. קיבלנו אתה, ויצאנו קידשת מכל העמים. ומועדי קודשך בשמחה וששון, הנחתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש ישראל בהזמנים.
Amen. Look at the lights.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא מאורי האש.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, המבדיל בין קודש שפו, בין אור לחושך, בין ישראל לעמים, בין יום השביעי לששת ימי המעשה, בין קדושת שבת לקדושת יום טוב. הבדלת את יום השביעי מששת ימי המעשה, קידשת הבדלת וקידשת את עמך ישראל בקדושתך. ברוך אתה אדוני המבדיל בין קודש לקודש.
Amen. One more.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה
Chag Sameach. Continue on page 51. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol v'atzei kidula le'otzeh ha'breshit shelo asanu koyei haratzot ve'lo samanu k'mishpat adama shelo sam chalkeinu kahem ve'gohor aleinu kechol ha'macham va'anachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך אחרי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. נשמע ביוסף.
כי המלכות שלך היא עולמי תמלוך בכבוד הכתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר
והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Mourner's Kaddish, page 52. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabak v'yama divra kirutei v'yamich machutech v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei techol beit Yisrael v'agala u'bizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach v'olam lamei amen. Yiparach v'yishtabach yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasek V'tadar, v'taleh, v'talak, Shemei d'Kudusha, Richu, La'ela, Mikol, Birchata, v'shiratak, Tush b'chata, v'nechamatak, Kamiran, v'yama, v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmama rabba min shemak, v'chayim aleinu, v'yalko Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramah, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu, v'yalko Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. May be seated. Yasher Koch to Chazan Shamash and to Emily for giving us some beautiful harmonies. In just a moment, I guess we'll conclude with Yigdal on 53, and then our panelists will come and join us at the table. They'll tell us a little bit about what is it like to be a young person during these interesting times. And then about 9:45-ish, the cheesecake and the ice cream will come out. So a little bit of an incentive to stay here, to hear our young people, to get the cheesecake and the ice cream. Really thank you to Jamie Cohen for all the tech and everything like that. So Yigdal, page 53, and then our panelists.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח נמצא בעינת המציאותו אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו מלמד גם מצוות ואחדותו אין לו דמות הגוף ואין הגוף לא נערוך אליו קדושתו אדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא ראשון מראשית בראשיתו הינו אדון עולם בכל נוצר יורה גדולתו ומלכותו שפע נבואתו ניתנו, אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נביא וממית את אמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לעמהם, היה נביאו נאמן ביתו, לא יחליף להם ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו, צופה ויודע שתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו, גומר לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע כרישתו, ישלח לקץ ימים משיחנו, ויטוב מחקקי תשועתו, ותים יחרר ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדעה שם תהילתו, ותים יחרר ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדעה שם תהילתו. חג שמח.
All right, folks, make yourselves comfortable. Like I said, we're going to have a little discussion here. I'm going to invite our, 3+1. We have one who is on the way. So we have 2 graduating high school seniors, 1 college student with an adoring and supportive sister here. We have members of the family. Guys, come on. And okay. Guys, let's get.
I got you some more chairs.
Does this work? Okay. Folks, we're ready to start. Can everybody hear me? I've heard that the mics are sensitive, but they don't seem.
Why don't you use your lapel actually? Turn on your lapel and use it.
This is not the implication. This is just for the Zoom. This is only for Zoom, so just put this.
But so is that going to work?
No, everybody has to have a microphone.
Yeah, Jamie. So let's get everybody in there.
Everyone has to have
Guys, we're just working on the.
And then for the 3 of you, whoever's speaking.
Okay, we'll hold it.
Okay.
Okay, just working on. Does this work? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, Chag Sameach, and welcome to everybody. So this is like just totally, for me, so uplifting to be with these 3, soon to be 4 young people, 3 of whom are graduating from high school. Folks, I'm going to ask everybody, if you can pull your chairs over, I think it will be easier to see if everybody is on this side. So we can see if we can help people to do that. Anyway, 3 are graduating and 1 is already in college. We had 2 college graduates, one of whom unfortunately was not able to join us. And that's unfortunate, but we're going to go with whom we have. So I have to say before we get started that I have had the unbelievable pleasure of teaching these people in our Youth House program. I have seen them, I've spoken with them, along with Avi Siegel, director of our Youth House, who I want to thank for really being instrumental in so many things that occurs with our teens and post-teens. And what we thought about was how important it would be for us to have a conversation with these young people about their Jewish identities, about what it has been like for them to grow up as Jews in Great Neck, What are some of the positive aspects, and frankly, what are some of the challenges of being Jewish in this town? What were their expectations, or are there expectations in terms of entering college and their Jewish identities there? Or what are some of the experiences that they have had as Jews in general that might not have been so positive? And we'll see what else evolves, and we're also going to open it up. Many of us who are here certainly have connections to and interest in what's going on in our high school community and also on college campuses across the country. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Molly Mamie. All the way over to your right, Amanda Volk next to her. And Sarah Bernstein is right here. We are also hoping to welcome Cam Cooper, who is on his way, he says, and will be here in due time. So the first thing that I want to do is to give each of you the opportunity to introduce yourselves. So to say where you are or where you were in high school, where you hope to, are planning to be in college coming in the fall, or where you are currently in college. A little bit about your Jewish connection and involvement growing up. So the first, bunch of years of your life up until now. And then a little bit about some of the positive aspects of growing up here as a Jewish person in Great Neck and some of the negatives, some of the challenges. So Sarah, why don't you start?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Perfect.
So hi, I'm Sarah Bernstein. I'm a senior at Great Neck South. In the fall, I'm going to be going to the University of Rochester as a freshman. A little bit about my Jewish life when I was younger. I've always been very much involved in the Jewish community. I went to a Jewish sleepaway camp for about 8 summers, took a month-long trip to Israel with the camp. Actually just finished my Hebrew high school graduation in Temple Beth El. I'm part of the Joy Kulanu program between Temple Beth El and Temple Israel. I think a really good thing about growing up Jewish in Great Neck is the sheer amount of the Jewish community that you have access to here. It's a super nurturing and caring community. But the one downside of that is I've spent my entire life, yes, with a very nurturing Jewish community, but a lot of my life has only been with a very nurturing Jewish community. So there's not a lot of setup for kind of when I go into the rest of the world where there's not necessarily as many Jews and not necessarily as many Jews like me. It's my first time that I'm going to really need to try to grasp how to deal with that.
Terrific. Thank you. Amanda.
Hello, my name is Amanda Volk. I'm also a senior at Great Neck South High School. I will be attending Lehigh University in the fall. I have been in the Temple Israel Religious School since the 2nd grade. I went through the religious school and Utah Super High School. I've also worked as a madrachim for 2 years, which has been very exciting. And Sarah kind of stole my answer to the other question, so I'll try to think of a new one. But I will agree that something very positive about growing up Jewish in Great Neck has been just the large community, and I've loved the family and community that I've had here at Temple Israel specifically. But part of the negative, I guess someone repeat what Sarah said, is that it's very hard to only have, Jewish community around you. And I think luckily, having gone to South High School, I've gotten a little taste of not constantly being surrounded by only Jewish people. And I've gotten a taste of getting to know people of other cultures and backgrounds and families who come from different parts of the world that are represented within our community. But I think that that's only just the very beginning of, I think, what the next 4 years in college will show me.
Wonderful. Thank you. And now Molly, who is already in college, so brings a little bit of a different perspective.
Hi, my name is Molly Mamie. I am a senior to be at Muhlenberg College. I went to sleepaway camp for 7 years, Jewish sleepaway camp, and that really connected me to the Jewish community. Before then, it was really just kind of forced upon me by my parents, particularly my mom. Like I would be pushed to go to shul every week, and I had to go to services that I didn't really like. They were just too long and I didn't really understand them. And I didn't care to, because growing up in such a Jewish town, I feel like I was kind of born into something before I really had a say. And it really wasn't until I left Great Neck that I came to appreciate what that was like, and having such an easy access to a strong Jewish community here is something that I really appreciate now much more than I did before. Another positive thing about growing up Jewish in Great Neck is like I can go to someone's Shabbat dinner and not have to question if the food is kosher. And that's really not something you can find in a lot of places. And like I went to North High School and it's a public school and I had Jewish holiday breaks, and that's also not something you can find really anywhere else. I really appreciated that. And like even if we did have school on Jewish holidays, like my teachers were super understanding because they still expected people to be absent. Religious excuses were always really open in Great Neck, and I don't know how that is in other places, but I really appreciated growing up Jewish in Great Neck after I went to college more than before.
Thank you. No, that's great. We have a question about the first question. Go ahead.
Not time yet, that's all right. Rabbi, could you ask them if they understand what to do or say when they're approached about BDS on campus?
So I think we'll get to that, okay? Because they are going to, talk about adjusting to college campus and all of the different aspects of that. So first of all, thank you, all of you reflecting on understanding, I think, each of you, that this is an unusual Jewish community here in Great Neck, and that the rest of the world is not going to look like this. And so you're going to have to either, adjust in some way, or it might be a little frustrating for you. So moving on now to college, and for two of you, it's anticipation, and for one of you, it's actual experience. So, Sarah, for you, and Amanda, for you, speak a little bit about where it is that you're going, a little bit about your sense of what the Jewish community there is going to be like. So what are you excited about? Is there anything that you're worried about in terms of what it's going to be like? And also, if you can anticipate, do you imagine that your Jewish connection, your Jewish identity might change a little bit in college? How do you think that might happen? So, looking out at it, what do you see? So Amanda, why don't you go first, and then you can take Sarah's.
I was gonna say this way, I don't have to come up with a new response, Sarah.
Love you, Amanda.
If anyone doesn't know, Lehigh University is located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, so not a notoriously Jewish town or state, honestly. So from even just, getting into college and starting to reach out to people, I have met people that are from that area, and have gotten to know them, but not Jewish. And so I've started to get the feel of what it will be like to be going to school and meeting people that have not only completely different religious experiences from me, but also just like school experiences as well, like explaining what school is like in Great Neck compared to school in the Lehigh Valley are two very different things. And I had conversations with people where it was like, your school does that? What? It's just crazy. So I imagine the same type of religious conversations as public high school conversations. But luckily, my school does have a decent Jewish population that attends a lot of Long Island, Westchester. So I know that I will have people that are similar to me, and I won't feel completely like I'm on the outside, and I'll have people that I can connect with and go to Hillel or Chabad with. But I'm excited to branch out and get to know people and teach my own religion and traditions to people that have never experienced it before.
Great Hillel.
Great Hillel.
Apparently.
Thank you.
I don't know if you share this right now. Do you know now who your roommate is going?
I do know.
And can you speak to that? Is this something? Were you looking for somebody who would be Jewish, or were you looking for somebody who wouldn't be, or did it matter? Because most colleges now do allow you to choose your own roommate freshman year, which is very different than many of us might have experienced growing up. So could you just address that a little bit?
Sure. The roommate finding process is very complicated and very stressful at times. But originally when I was looking for a roommate, I didn't really have anything specific in mind. I kind of wanted a roommate that wasn't really anything like friends I have in Great Neck. Not that there's anything wrong with my friends from Great Neck, but I kind of wanted someone that wasn't going to be exactly like me. Like I didn't want to live with myself because I can get sick of myself sometimes. So like why would I want to live with someone that's exactly like me? So originally, religion wasn't really something that mattered to me when looking for a roommate. I did end up finding a roommate that does happen to be Jewish and felt very involved in her BBYO chapter. So that's something that we kind of connected on, but it wasn't something that was right away like the most important to me when looking. Look who it is.
This is our fourth.
Was there any other part of your question, Rabbi, that I forgot?
Perfect.
Okay.
No, we have time to get back to everything. So Sarah, Cam, the question that you're going to answer, which everybody already did, is what was your most embarrassing high school moment? Yeah. I'm kidding, man. That's what you get for being a few minutes late.
You should have just let him go.
You would have, too.
You would have done it.
Actually, we're going to get to Cam Cooper in a moment, and we're so glad that he was able to join us. But right now, the question is your anticipation of college. What do you imagine you'll find in terms of the Jewish community? What's exciting? What's off-putting? So, Sarah.
So yeah, like I said before, I'm going to be going to University of Rochester, which has a decently large Jewish population. I think it's probably like mid-teens, which like isn't massive, but is by no means like a small or like concerningly low number of like a Jewish population in a school. There was the admitted students day when I went. There was like already a Hillel meetup, and I essentially met like their version of the youth director, and already met a bunch of super nice Jewish kids, which is really great. And it like kind of happened to be that half the kids that I met before I even like got to the admitted students day, I met through some form of Jewish geography. So it's like either like a camp friend of mine's friend or someone that my parents knew, their kids or stuff like that. So there is a pretty strong Jewish community there, which is nice. Roommate wise, my roommate isn't Jewish, which like wasn't a massive deal. It would have been a benefit, I think, in my mind if my roommate was Jewish, just because it would have made some, like I wouldn't feel like I needed to explain things. And like kind of getting back to what I was saying before, I like need to remember that not everyone who isn't Jewish didn't grow up in Great Neck. And like I went to go say something that I know all of my Christian, like if I mentioned Passover to my Christian friends at home, they would all know exactly what I meant, and they would know the baseline of traditions. And like if I go to mention something like that to my who will be my roommate, I remember like they won't really remember that or like understand that all of the time. But as a whole, there's a pretty strong Jewish community on campus, which has been really, really nice.
Wonderful. Thank you, Molly. So Molly, you're entering your senior year at Muhlenberg. So say a little bit about well, what you expected, if you could think back to when you were first starting, like your peers to your right, and what it is that you found, and also a little bit about ways in which your Jewish identity has changed since you've been at college.
Great question. Muhlenberg is a very Jewish school. When I was a freshman, it was around 40% Jewish, and now I think it's around 30 to 35. So going into college, the Jewish community was honestly the biggest factor of my decision making. I was going to go only to a place with, I think I made it 20% or higher. That was like my bottom, but I guess I really lucked out in this one. Before I was a student, I visited my cousin who was a student there, and I went to a Hillel dinner just to see what it would be like. And I was really amazed because I had gone to Hofstra Hillel dinners in the past. He's going to Hofstra. And it just wasn't, it was a long time ago. My brother graduated a couple years ago, but I totally expected to see that in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I was just blown away at how many people were there. And I'm a student worker now at Hillel. I've been for the past 3 years. I really love it there. There's a really strong Jewish community, and working at Hillel has also made me closer to Hillel at my school. And we get between like 100 and 150 people every week, and my school is only like 2,100 people, so it's a great turnout, and that's only for Hillel. Chabad is also really popular on my campus. We get about the same number of people there too. What was the other question?
your Jewish identity.
Yeah.
So you're now 3 years into college, entering your fourth. So in what ways has your Jewish identity changed? You know, it could be in part, Molly, as a result of what you've experienced in college, also in part about your own internal evolution. So whatever it is, how are you different Jewishly now than you were?
Yeah, as I was saying before, a little bit, I felt like I was being forced into this community because it was all around me all the time. And everyone I spoke to was Jewish. All my friends had always been Jewish. They're still mostly Jewish. I don't know why I tend to gravitate towards Jewish students, but my Judaism has definitely become a lot more personalized after going to college because it was no longer an obligation. I didn't have to go to shul anymore every week. I didn't have to go to Shabbat dinner. I wanted to. And that's when I realized like it actually really does mean something to me. And that's why I came back really excited that Great Neck is so Jewish. So I don't know. I really like being Jewish, and I don't think I appreciated it as much when I was, even when I was in sleepaway camp, having the time of my life. It was just kind of pushed upon me. I went to Sabbath surf camp because my mom forced me into it. And then it became like really important to me as well. So I think when I am enjoying something, I like it more than if someone makes me do it. Kind of like doing laundry.
Do you now like doing the laundry?
Yeah, it makes me feel independent.
Well, that's terrific, because we actually, I'm sure everybody here has a lot of laundry that they do.
Yeah.
So Cam, welcome to Cam Cooper, everybody. Let's give it up for Cam. So Cam, I'm just going to ask you to just sort of, step in and just backtrack a little bit. So the first question that I had asked your peers is to talk a little bit about, first of all, where they are in high school here, where they are looking forward to going, a little bit about your Jewish involvement up until this point in your life, and also the pros and cons of being Jewish in Great Neck. So what's been great and what's been challenging for you? So.
Sure. So my name is Cameron Cooper. I am attending Hofstra Honors University. Hofstra University, the Honors College next year. And in Great Neck, personally, I've had a lot of great experiences. I grew up, I started at preschool at Temple Bethel, right down the block. And through going there every Tuesday up until I was about 15, and then of course, COVID, switching things up and merging to the Kulana program over here, I was able to continue my Jewish education and learning more about my own faith. And it helped me to create this warm spot. This community is very warm and loving, and it's really helped me to become a better person and the person who I am. It's shaped who I am today. So what was the other question? Sorry.
That's okay. No, the question is, so you said you're going to Hofstra. Now, any challenges of being Jewish here? And you could answer honestly. These are nice people. Anything that was challenging for you growing up as a Jewish person in Great Neck?
I mean, for some of my friends that aren't as Jewish, they saw it as like a joke, me going to Hebrew high school. Like they thought after your bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, that it's over, like you're already seen as an adult in the Jewish community. But I thought, why stop gaining knowledge when you can continue to grow as a person and grow spiritually? So I continued. I came back every Tuesday. I even started as a madrachim this year, becoming a teacher's assistant for the 3rd grade class. And I absolutely loved it. I loved helping other Jewish children to become stronger and better students. And I felt like it actually helped me become a better person as well.
I'll actually say, so Amanda and Cam both serve as madrichim in our program, madrich and madricha, and they are just outstanding. I mean, all 4 of them, you can see from the way they present themselves. These are outstanding young people. So Cam, just a little bit about your anticipation of Hofstra. So now, what are you anticipating in terms of the Jewish community there? And how do you imagine your Jewish identity might change when you're in college?
So, in Uniondale, there's not as many temples all around.
The wilds of Uniondale, New York.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to start. So, there's not going to be temples on every block, every corner, just like in Great Neck. But the bright side is it's only a half hour, 20 minutes away, depending on how fast you're going on LIE. So yeah, I'll be able to come home every weekend for Shabbat and celebrate with my family, and I'll have the luxury of being able to bring home college friends that are Jewish to my community and opening them to, the open arms of our community, because we are such a beautiful community. And I already plan on joining my fellow program at Hofstra. And there's just many other programs that I'd love to get involved in. And I already looked at the class catalog, and I'm making sure to take a Jewish education course because I want to continue to learn, and just anything to keep Jewish identity very strong.
It's fantastic. So I want to just shift a little bit. So, and look at kind of, the broader Jewish world right now. So obviously, you know that there is anti-Semitism out there. There's been an uptick of anti-Semitic events in this country over the last several years. Also, that attitudes toward Israel are very complicated, especially on college campuses. But you guys personally, you can answer if you wish. No, everybody doesn't have to answer this question. It's up to you. Have you yourselves personally experienced any form of discrimination, anti-Semitism as a Jewish individual? And you can also answer more broadly. I mean, what is it? What's your reaction to realizing that there are a lot of people out there who are very happy with us, but a lot who don't like us so much? So answer it personally, or just taking a step back and looking. And it doesn't have to be in any order. So jump in. Sound okay?
So I have an answer to this on kind of two accounts. The one about more stuff at home. There was, in my English class last year, we needed to write a research paper. So I wrote mine on a lot of the like BDS movement things that you would see on social media, and a lot of the misinformation that gets spread that way. And again, like one of the great benefits of growing up in Great Neck is I had never personally experienced any anti-Semitism aimed directly at me. But growing up in an area with a lot of people sharing social media, using social media as a way that they would share a lot of their news and get a lot of their news. I would see a lot of times my friends posting all of these just blatantly incorrect things about Israel that are completely thrown out of proportion with just out checking anything. So I kind of needed to take the time to explain to them why it was problematic, and they didn't really see at first the reasons why what they were saying could be seen as anti-Semitic, because they're like, they have tons of Jewish friends and they don't necessarily dislike Jewish people, but they have a problem with Israel. So then that can kind of end up saying things that can be offensive and can be spreading misinformation that can then be used to be anti-Semitic. And then that kind of, I think, getting to your question, you see a lot of that on a lot of college campuses these days, because when you go to a typically liberal campus, there's some great things about that, but then there's also usually pretty strong anti-Israel movements there, where you kind of need to understand, where I think the best thing you can do is do your own research yourself. So you have your own knowledge of what the actual facts are, that you can then take the time to not get into a fight with people, but kind of just respectfully explain why what they're saying is wrong and why it's false information, and then kind of try to correct their view.
Right. Sarah, thank you. That was very actually inspiring to hear. I just want to point out before we continue that one of the things that we hope that college students understand is the importance of high resolution. The more you know. It's not about Israel being perfect. It's not about not being able to criticize Israel. It's about understanding the facts and the context as deeply as possible so that you can have a thoughtful conversation and push back when people are speaking from a place of not knowing the actual facts and not understanding the context. So anybody else want to jump in terms of your own personal experience or your overall sense?
Similar to Sarah, I haven't, luckily, growing up in Great Neck, really had any personal anti-Semitic experiences targeted towards me. I have unfortunately had to witness stuff in the community as a whole. For example, last year I was actually at the youth house for a Rosh Chodesh seminar, which is like a female group that meets once a month. And we were all together when North Shore Hebrew Academy's website got hacked and defaced with Nazi swastikas. And so we all kind of experienced that news together, and it was really devastating for all of us to see. But for me personally, I've had nothing targeted directly towards me. In terms of going to college next year and possibly experiencing anti-Semitism or conflicts in conversations regarding Israel, something I've learned just from growing up in general and in Great Neck is that everyone's going to have an opinion, and it's not always about changing a person's opinion, but it's about showing them the facts. And so I don't always need to tell people what my full opinion is, but as long as they understand what the facts are and they see why one side believes one thing and why another believes the other, and that it's not about like to take the emotion out of it and just put the facts, because you can't argue the history of Israel and how Israel came to be. You can't argue against, what happened. Yes, you can debate the morality of what's going on now, but you can't. Facts are facts, and some people might say they're not, but unfortunately, if you open a history textbook and read the history of Israel, it's hard to dispute it. So I think that, like Rabbi and Sarah both said, like knowledge is power. So the more you know, and the more that you can say, well, actually, what you just said is factually incorrect. Let me explain where you misspoke. Is more powerful to me than saying, let me change your opinion about this whole topic. So that's something that I'm hoping to take the knowledge I've learned in my years here to college.
Anybody else?
I have a couple of things to say. I also never personally think I've encountered any anti-Semitism directed at me. And this is in no way anti-Semitic, but I was a little bit taken aback when my friend asked me what is Shabbat, because he was not Jewish and he did not know what it was, and that's also not something I would ever have to explain to someone in Great Neck. So that made me a little bit uneasy, because I was okay, I'm not in Great Neck anymore. But then I quickly realized that Allentown is a very strong Jewish population. I used to go to an Orthodox synagogue every Friday night, and I would walk across campus to get there, and I'd be wearing a long skirt, something appropriate. And I kind of felt judged on my campus just because I'm walking to this place and I'm dressed fancy, and people probably know that it's that I'm headed to a shul. But I never felt unsafe. I feel extremely comfortable walking across my campus and even in Great Neck, because I know that there are so many other Jewish people around me. If I was in the middle of Allentown, it may be a different situation. I really never like to leave the house with anything visibly Jewish on me. I don't like wearing Hebrew letters in public or a Jewish star necklace. I don't like when my boyfriend walks out of his house with a yarmulke on his head. And these are serious things that we do have to go through every day. We have to make these decisions because anti-Semitism around the world is so unpredictable and horrible and devastating. And so I would like to say that I'm always thinking about what could happen to me when I'm in public, and to make sure that I feel safe enough to go to a certain place. But luckily nothing has ever happened to me or to anybody that I know, actually. You just have to stay cautious.
Thanks, Mom.
I personally haven't been, thank God I haven't been targeted by any acts of anti-Semitism either. And just something sort of different. I say Baruch Hashem, or thank God. I say that a lot just because I'm very appreciative for where I am in every position and every experience that I have. And there have been times where I would say that in an audience, and my audience wouldn't be Jewish and they wouldn't understand. So if anything, I just find that as a moment of teaching, being able to explain to them what's going on in my life, why I'm appreciative for this moment, and explaining what this means in my religion. So, I mean, there's always a teaching moment, no matter where you're from, what background. So I feel like that's just as simple as it gets.
Well, first of all, it's very uplifting to know that you guys are going to be out there in the brighter, wider world, representing not just yourselves, but your families and your people. Final question, and then we will close. So just one sentence or a couple of words. What gives you the most hope looking forward about the Jewish people? What are you the most hopeful about? So let's start with you.
A lot of pressure.
Want us to come back to you?
Nah, I got
Okay. Can we know you that?
Better be groundbreaking.
Oh. I'm sorry, it has to be in haiku form.
Yeah. In Hebrew, 5-7.
The best sentence I could come up with would be keep educating yourself, keep learning, and keep prospering. And the youth of our generation are the future. And I feel that if the youth keep on getting nurtured by knowledge and we keep on embracing every opportunity we're given, we're gonna get through all of our problems and we're gonna become a wonderful community.
Beautiful. All right, thank you. Molly.
I don't really know what to say, but I am looking forward to my own Jewish future. Like I want to have a Jewish family. I used to not want to because my mom told me that I could only date people who are Jewish, and that made me not want to.
Yeah.
But now I really am looking forward to. I'm such a rebel. I'm realizing everything else. But I hold Judaism very close to my heart a lot now, and I am excited to spread that onto my future family and to my friends.
I'm very hopeful for the activism of our generation. I think that I know, especially in 2020, when there was a lot of talk about racism and stuff like that, something that frustrated me a lot was selective activism. And I would always say to people, selective activism is not activism, because you can't pick and choose who to fight for. You gotta fight for, if you're gonna fight for one, you gotta fight for all. But I think that slowly people are picking up on that trend of activate for everyone. I'll just throw out one of my favorite poems is First They Came, and I don't know if anyone knows it, and I'm not gonna recite it because I don't know it off the top of my head, but essentially it says, you know, first they came for the communists and I did nothing because I wasn't a communist, and it keeps going and talks about a bunch of different groups, and then it says, and then they came for me and there was no one left to fight for me. That's a poem that I've known for, I don't know how long, I think since I was in the 6th grade, and it's something that I've always kind of had in the back of my mind. And I'm just very hopeful that people know that they gotta fight for everyone and stand up for what they believe in, because if we don't, then there will be no one else to fight for us. So.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me, which I know was touched on a little bit before, is a lot of the times when kids are younger, we go to temple, we go to Hebrew school or stuff like that, just because we're kids and it's something that our parents told us to do. But I find that as myself and a lot of my friends are getting older, and all of my camp friends are getting older, and there's less pressure from our parents specifically to come do all of these things, and it's more of a choice. How many of my friends have actually decided to go back to things, and even in college when they found Hillel and been able to maybe like join another youth group type of thing if they weren't necessarily able to get into it at home, where people really seem to find this new love for Judaism as they go away to college and find a new community that could kind of restart that kind of like fire within them, which I find to be really interesting, where as you grow up, I feel like you kind of see that dip, but I think we're finally getting to the point where we're old enough and we're becoming mature enough and independent enough that the kids that really do want to continue the traditions are starting to pick everything back up again. And it's really just a cool thing to see.
Wonderful. So this was a setup for me to be able to say that one of the things that makes me hopeful about the future of our people are these kinds of young people. They have internalized who are proud, who are honest. I mean, Molly, I hope you will always be honest and not just say what you think people want to hear, and say what you actually feel. And who also understand that being a Jewish person is about raising ourselves up, raising other people up. That it all works together. So truly, for everything that you bring and everything that you are, we have the highest hopes. Thank you for being here with us this evening. It is time for dessert, and our distinguished panelists will be available to mingle and to answer questions from the crowd.
You guys are so articulate, so inspiring. I love it.
I am. Just that I got here. Oh, nice to meet you. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Oh, that's so oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Oh really? That's awesome. I'm so excited. I haven't. I've only gone to visit once since I got in. So I haven't even gotten to look around anything. Oh, okay. Yeah. My parents went to that. Yes. Right. Yeah. 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 I had gone to visit years ago with my brother. I have older brother, so I kind of gone on the college touring process with them, and I had visited. And then when it was time for me to look, it was like the size and the type of like surrounding area that I wanted. Like I wanted a college campus. I didn't want to be in the city. So I ended up looking, and I got a very like camp feel. Huh? I didn't when I went to visit, but I went with my like when my brother visited. I went to the mountaintop. No, he didn't end up going, but I went to visit with him. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So and I loved it, and I applied like early decision. And I don't ski. No. Yeah. Yeah, so those hills. I'll have a sled. I'll sled down. Oh, really? That's so exciting. Oh, yes. Yes, I do. Amanda. Yes. Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Lots of nachas, I hope.
Yes. I have to say, Molly, made your mom so proud tonight. I know she's going to give me a thunderstorm tomorrow. No, but she's saying she's embraced everything, you know.
First of all, that she is so
I love it.
It's exactly what she.
Yes, of course she was. She told
She
her
didn't
what it
speak
is.
her mind.
She just told her how it is.
Everybody is so articulate.
Are you quoting a poem? Like that's hard to wonder.
My favorite poem is a chapter said, "This is a favorite poem."
I was 18
The only
years
poem
old.
I know.
If I remembered to tie my shoelaces,
That's what
I
I'm
was happy.
saying.
They're like quoting
I can't spell poem.
We're like, who is she? My favorite is the only one I know.
That was great. It's like, I don't know if you've heard of it. The people are like, yeah, you had them eating out of the palm of your hand. Of course, the Pastor Muller book.
I know. I knew she was going to do that. Well, I knew she would read script, so when he said that, I would like tap your legs and I was like, here you go. I was like, please take this. I can't take this. I was like, I don't know.
Some of us don't no BLT from the ES, so you take this one. Oh my God. Eat, have some ice cream. I feel better.
Oh, I've had so much today, Robert. I had a surprise party this afternoon. I'm stuffed.
Oh God, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you did this.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
And honestly, teaching them was like the highlight of my week. So much fun just to like go down there and enjoy. Oh, this is a mother-daughter moment. I don't want to miss that. No, it's okay.
No, I had such a, I know, I got my phone. Oh, I had a rough night. I almost wasn't here today. Now, I took a nap on my birthday. Now, I had no fever all day now. Yeah.
So Ellie was supposed to. I couldn't, I mean, I could not. I knew it was going to be good. This is even beyond. It's very like professional. All right, eat.
Get in with the stuff. Guys, thank you so much. On once now, everything is good. I owe that man $1. Why do I bet against him? He knows everything. Oh, no, that's it.
No, it's just like waiting.
Did you find another? My book is over here. No, no, it was like another. Oh, it's a Mission Torah book. It was like.
It's right here. It's right here.
Thank you.
Right here.
You know we got you, Rabbi.
Oh.